like he's stirring up trouble.
Black attack.
Black girl.
Talking about the Nerdery.
My movie can't come out now.
Oh, so is he serious?
Hello, and welcome to our debut episode of the Nerdery. Today, our main topic will be Star Trek TV shows. But first, before we get into that discussion, we will be doing quick introductions, and then we will talk about nerdy news that's going on lately. Several of the people who are supposed to be in this call have yet to either show up or had to cancel last minute, but we will forge ahead, and I'm sure a couple more of our friends are going to join. But in the meantime, why don't we chat with Terry?
Hello.
Terry, what is your history with Star Trek?
Well, I grew up on Star Trek. My dad was pretty into it, so it was just sort of one of those things. Especially Next Generation was on when I was like young, and then reruns of the original series and Deep Space Nine and Voyager were on like kind of as I was like middle school, high school age. So I watched it very sporadically, I guess, kind of growing up. And I've recently been rewatching some of it, mostly like Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager. Watched a little bit of Discovery. I watched Picard. That's the one that I actually did watch all of it, of the new ones. That's the only one I've watched of the new ones all the way through.
All right.
I don't know if you want me to give opinions yet or if we're just talking. Okay.
All right. Let's get into the news. And then anything I talk about, you want to chime in, feel free. Some of this stuff you're probably not going to have any interest in. Oh, I lost my screen here for a sec. All right. I am losing my mind trying to move this screen.
I believe in you.
It doesn't want to cooperate, but I will make it cooperate. Okay, here we go. The first bit of news that we are going to talk about is Jurassic World Dominion came out last night. And characters from the original Jurassic Park movies coming back for this one. I don't know how I feel about that yet. I haven't watched it yet. I was thinking about going to see it today, but I passed. Might go see it next week. However, one thing's for sure, critics do not like this movie so far. Hundreds of reviews are in. Rotten Tomatoes has it at, as of this morning, was a 37. Audience likes it a bit more, as they usually do. And Metacritic was just as bad. Oops, that was Metacritic at 37, and Rotten Tomatoes was at 34. You planning to see the movie?
Probably not in theaters. I might see it eventually. I always find it really funny with Jurassic Park. They like kind of the amount of science that has been sort of discovered from like the beginning of Jurassic Park to new Jurassic Park with like how dinosaurs looked and interacted and things. But they, I kind of respect the like, yes, we know we're wrong, but we're committed to our wrongness.
Oh yeah,
this is what it's happening. And like, okay, I can respect the commitment to wrongness if you acknowledge that.
I love that in the first Jurassic World movie, they brought it up and said, look, this isn't how it's supposed to look like, but you guys wanted it to be cooler. Like they explained it away. They gave it attention.
Yeah.
All right.
Like we're leading into our wrongness. Deal with it.
All right. The next piece of news announced is that the Thunderbolts movie has found a director. It's supposed to start filming next year. And the Thunderbolts are an MCU team that's going to be led by Baron Zemo. He was, of course, in Captain America Civil War, and he was in the Disney Plus show Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The director that they just hired is Jake Schreier, this guy on the right here. And I have not seen any of his movies because he's barely done any movies so far. So I don't know if it's just because they feel like they can control him better, or if they're just really impressed with what he's done so far.
I don't know. It's Disney, I assume, somewhere. Because do they own all of Marvel now, or does it just?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like Disney could just throw money at.
They own all of Marvel. The issue is that before they bought Marvel, Sony had the movie rights to Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why Spider-Man was always kind of on its own. And Fox had the rights to X-Men and Fantastic Four and Daredevil.
And they just bought Fox.
But they bought Fox, yeah. So all right. The next bit of news actually announced today. As soon as I find the picture, I have a lot of pictures here. But announced today is a new anime coming out in December on Netflix, a 6-episode anime based on Dragon Age, which is a video game series by BioWare, also known for making the Mass Effect games. Here it is. It's called Dragon Age Absolution. It's set in Tevinter, if you're familiar with the Dragon Age franchise at all, which is basically most of the Dragon Age world revolves around mages being oppressed by Templars. Tevinter is the odd country out in that mages are actually the ruling class. So, and they've never gone into Tevinter in the video games, so it should give the creators of the anime some freedom. Next up is the sequel to Ghostbusters Afterlife was announced. It's supposed to come out next year, which is a surprise because as far as I know, they haven't started filming or anything yet. Where am I looking for here?
That I did see.
I need to have less pictures on the next show because I am looking through a pile of pictures.
It's all right. I can talk about how the last Ghostbuster movies that came out was better than it had any right to be.
I didn't see Afterlife.
It was really good. I was very disappointed by the first attempt at rebooting Ghostbusters, which I was sad about because I liked a lot of the people in it. It was just a lot of.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't a fan of the movie itself, and I wanted to like it because I liked a lot of the people in it. But the new one, it's good. It's kind of just the right mix of kind of nostalgia, and the new characters are interesting. They brought back some old characters. It's definitely made for fans of the original, but could also kind of geared towards kids of next generation as well. So yeah, if you haven't seen the Ghostbusters movie, I recommend it, and I hope.
I do know the director Jason Reitman has already said that they're going back to the firehouse from the original Ghostbusters movie in Manhattan.
Nice.
And he teased this as a returning character.
Nice.
Vigo the Carpathian is apparently what they're going to. I don't know if they're going to revolve it around him or not, but they still got time. The Black Adam trailer came out starring The Rock, a DC Comics movie. I know he's been trying to make this movie for a very long time, but The Rock is a very busy guy. As far as the character goes, I have no interest in Black Adam, so I probably will not see that movie. Do you know anything about him?
Nope.
He was a supervillain for so long in comics, but now the Rock was interested in playing him. He's being presented as a guy in the middle. He's not a superhero.
Oh yeah, got to go with that edgy anti-hero.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to wait for the movie to come out, and people would have to be insanely impressed for me to have any interest.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Came out in the past week, I believe, is the Miss Marvel show on Disney+. And holy crap, was it review bombed on IMDb. The reasons were mixed as to why it was review bombed. Some people weren't happy that the show was aimed at a younger audience, but considering the
Shocking
characters
horror
as
comics for
teenagers-
children.
yeah, I don't know what they expected. Some people were upset that it had a Muslim actress. What do you want? I mean, the character's
surprise
Muslim.
face.
Some diehard comic book fans were unhappy that her powers were changed from the comic book version quite a bit, and that was done to avoid any similarities to Mr. Fantastic, because she has stretchy powers in the comics. So her powers are quite different, but if it was a more established, well-known character, I might be a little bit more upset, but I don't think Ms. Marvel's been around for longer than 10 years. So...
And that's another one I don't know a lot about. I haven't watched it. I want to watch it. But Miss Marvel, is that one of the characters that was kind of like reestablished, like she was an old character, and then they I think about 10 years ago.
The original Miss Marvel is now known as Captain Marvel.
Okay, yeah.
So when they created this newer Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, it's because she kind of like emulates Carol Danvers, the original Miss Marvel. And finally, unfortunately, the other reason it might have been review bombed is because it's so woke, which is really offensive to people who don't like diversity and equality, unfortunately.
Because, comics never deal with controversial issues or politics. Yeah, I'm a big proponent of die mad about it to a lot of
I think Disney will be all right.
Yeah, I always find it interesting when things get like instantly review bombed the second that they get released, when it's, generally, something that's not cis white dude as the main character. Oh, really? Like within an hour of it being released, you watched all of it and formed an opinion. I'm sure you absolutely, definitely actually watched it and didn't just decide that you hated it instantly.
Next bit of news. I need to start rolling along here because I'm going longer than I was expecting. But that is Bruce Campbell is writing a comic book crossover for DC Comics, Sergeant Rock and versus the Army of Darkness. He previously worked with Marvel Comics exclusively on Evil Dead, involved with Marvel Zombies. So it's interesting that DC Comics is now working with him for the same franchise. Let's see. Obi-Wan Kenobi was announced as the most watched series premiere on Disney Plus. Considering all their previous Star Wars and Marvel shows, that shows quite a lot of hype and interest in Obi-Wan Kenobi. So good for them, I guess. But I actually haven't watched any of it yet because I still haven't watched Book of Boba Fett yet.
It's good. Yeah, I've watched it. I'm curious to see where they're going with it. I'm enjoying it so far. I don't want to do spoilers because it's relatively, new, but yeah.
I know I'll watch it eventually because to me, Mandalorian is the best Star Wars there is, which is probably offensive to many Star Wars fans who prefer the original trilogy. But to me, Mandalorian is hooked me more than any other Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, what's funny with The Mandalorian is I don't know anyone that dislikes The Mandalorian. And Star Wars, like I'm a big Star Wars fan. And hello.
What's up?
I'm a big Star Wars fan, and Star Wars fans are some of the saltiest humans on the planet. Like they will always find something to be mad about. But like I've never met anyone that dislikes The Mandalorian.
That is our friend G, and he disappeared for a second because he is actually at work. One of our friends who we plan on doing more shows with. However, sometimes he works around this time. So that's one thing we're going to focus on is trying to work out a schedule where most or all of us can be part of this show. Finally, the last piece of news I'm going to go over is the Summer Game Fest showcase was yesterday. So there's a bunch of video game news that I'm just going to burn right through. First up is The Last of Us was announced as getting its own remake. Considering how many times it's been remastered now, I'm surprised that they're going back to the well once more and just doing an entire remake for the game. However, they will be adding a campaign storyline mode for multiplayer. And they also shared a screenshot of the Last of Us HBO show that will be coming out starring Pedro Pascal. Announced for Street Fighter 6. Not much of a surprise, but Guile will be returning for Street Fighter 6. A brand new game for the Alien franchise was announced. But what's interesting about Aliens Dark Descent is that it will be a real-time strategy game. Not something I would have expected for for an Aliens game, but it could be interesting. At least they're trying something different. The next announcement for this video game showcase, as soon as I find the picture, maybe if I organize the pictures, it would take me less time. I don't know where it is, but announced for Marvel's Midnight Suns, which is going to be an XCOM style game for Marvel characters. Announced was Spider-Man for the game, so that's kind of neat. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, which is a return to the classic beat-em-up game for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, was announced as releasing 6 days from now. So that's really soon, all of a sudden, that they're going to release it. And announced as being added to the game is Casey Jones as a playable character. So it's got the original 4 Turtles, April O'Neil, Splinter, and Casey Jones as playable characters. So that's cool. And I loved playing the classic beat-em-ups on the Nintendo and Super Nintendo. And G was smiling at that because he's been really looking forward to the game. And the last piece of big news from this Game Fest showcase is Goat Simulator 3. Which I never played any of those games, but I know a lot of people love them.
Yeah, no.
All right. Now on to our main topic today. Star Trek TV shows. There have been a lot. And full disclosure, I have not seen most of them. I am a huge fan of 2 of the shows. Huge fan. One, I'm in the middle about. The rest, I haven't seen or I really dislike to the point of I had no interest in them. Let's start with the one I love the most is Star Trek The Next Generation. I don't think anybody in our group debates whether or not that was a good show. It set the bar for a lot of us. For our generation. I know people in the generation before us preferred the original series a lot more. However, I think those are looked at with rose-colored glasses. And I'm sure if you look at a lot of stuff from the first season, people would be like, why do you love Next Generation so much? If you look at it from like midway through season 2 onwards is where they really started hitting their stride. With, I think, Measure of a Man or Pen Pals is where they really started to hit their stride.
I think Next Generation gets progressively better, like very steadily progressively better. I feel like a lot of shows kind of take a while to find their footing and then they're good for a while and then they go on for too long. But I feel like Next Generation gets consistently better every season to the point of, it's whereas other Star Treks I think are kind of hit and miss. Like
I view Next Generation as peaks and troughs because there were times in the later seasons which were really bad. Don't get me started on Dr. Crusher's ghost story. That was a really bad episode. The other Star Trek show I really liked was Voyager. And this is what kind of steamrolled this plan to have Star Trek be the discussion, because I brought up Voyager in our group chat and I was buried on for liking Star Trek Voyager.
Which one was Voyager?
Voyager was the one with Captain Janeway
Really?
where they were stranded.
Oh, that
in
girl?
Delta
Come on, down.
Before we get to Terry, G, why don't you just tell us real quick what your history with Star Trek is? How much have you seen?
The kind of only thing is what my mom was watching. I didn't really get into stuff like that.
Yeah,
Honestly.
I knew going into the show that out of all of us, you were probably the one with the least Star Trek knowledge.
Star Trek and Star Wars. Well, Star Wars is whatever I see, but not like, people do the history, all the expansion, all that stuff like that. More of a play it by ear person.
All right, Terry, why don't you just give us a quick rundown of what series you loved?
Okay. So I guess the ones that are kind of the original four, we got original series, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager. I like all four of those in different ways. Like, original series is campy and ridiculous, and I wouldn't call it good, but I would call it important. I would also call it entertaining, because I think it did a lot to establish like really what sci-fi was. Next Generation, I think, is probably my favorite. Next Generation is my favorite. Like, I will watch Patrick Stewart like stand against a wall for 60 minutes, honestly. Like, I love Patrick Stewart. I'll watch him in anything. I really liked the cast. I really liked kind of what it was doing for the time. Deep Space Nine, I wasn't super into when it was on, but I've kind of gotten an appreciation to it. I think Deep Space Nine, is the best one in retrospect. Because I'm gonna say it. I think Deep Space Nine is the best in retrospect. Because what they were trying to do as a show was very different than what other Star Treks were doing. And I think it really broke away from that sort of idealistic utopian, like, the future will be all sunshine and rainbows because, yay, humanity. I think DS9 really showed kind of the cracks in that. And I think it kind of came at a time where, like, the cracks sort of needed to be shown. I am a cynic, but there was definitely some like, some cringy stuff in Deep Space Nine, but I think in retrospect it was very good in what it tried to do. And the way it, sort of told a consistent story. Voyager I loved because, like, I think I was in middle school when it came out. And it was just sort of, I feel like we were middle school, maybe like early high school, but it was sort of the, like, female captain, like, badass women doing stuff. Yeah, I was born a Taurus for Halloween, like, when I was like 12 or 13. I can't remember how old I was, but I was definitely born a Taurus for Halloween, and I loved her, and I kind of feel like I grew up with Voyager, and that was one where I think it was maybe the least consistent of the Star Trek shows. Had really good episodes, had some, like, God, why episode. Wasn't a fan of the ending. Like, I just watched the ending, and it was like, of all the things you could have done, that's what you did. Okay.
I have some gripes with Voyager. However, I disagree with what you said. I think Voyager is the most consistent because for me, there's no episodes that are horribly bad. There's shows that are great and there are shows that are just okay. Whereas the other shows have shows that are great and episodes that are just horrible. There's no episode of Voyager that made me go, what did I just watch? There are times when they had a Chakotay episode that was bad. Like,
remember when they all turned into lizards? Remember when Tom Paris was a lizard, though? I'm going to go there.
All right. So two of our friends that are unfortunately not on this call right now are fierce defenders of Deep Space Nine. And I could not get into Deep Space Nine, nowhere near as much as pretty much every other Star Trek fan. The reason it was so difficult for me is because, for me, Star Trek The Next Generation was all about exploration.
Mm-hmm.
Them seeking out different things, making things interesting, moral crises coming up from those situations. Deep Space Nine was them sitting around waiting for stuff to happen to them, as opposed to them exploring.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I loved about Star Trek, was the exploration aspect of it. Even though there were times when obviously that was not the focus. When they weren't exploring space itself, a lot of times they were exploring morality, or they were exploring interspecies relationships. Data's humanity. It was a show about exploration to me. Deep Space Nine was not a show about exploration. I feel like Deep Space Nine was a show about society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I won't argue with that. Like, I think you're right. I think that there's kind of the joke of like they're not trekking it's not Star Trek. They're not trekking anywhere.
I've never heard that joke, but
yeah,
it's good. And there were parts of Deep Space Nine that I thought were really good. I really liked the idea of the what's it called? The access they had, the wormhole.
The wormhole, the game of quadrant wormhole.
Yes, I thought that was really interesting. However, I don't know. In Next Generation, they explained why all the species were humanoid. It was because of that parent race.
Low-key intelligent design, I guess.
So how did they get all the way out there? Because species that were coming out of there were also the humanoid type.
Well, I think because it's sort of, I don't know if they ever explicitly say it, but there's like, they kind of hint at the founders are, these like omnipotent wormhole aliens that are maybe low-key gods, but maybe also Qs, but not Qs. I don't know. So I think that you can make the argument that sort of revelation from Next Generation that, all of these humanoid species are related, and it's sort of like an intelligent design thing, which, that was a thing. Okay, this is probably a thing for like a whole other time that we don't have time to get into. But a friend of mine recently kind of brought up that, like, that idea, because it was like that, and then Babylon 5? No, Battlestar Galactica. They both kind of had this like low key, there is some sort of like intelligence that has established humanity as a species like theme going on. That was kind of, I feel like, a thing in the 90s. That's
Ronald Moore. He wrote both.
Yeah. Which I think is an interesting sci-fi concept, but like we could probably do better than that.
That wasn't the appeal. I loved the Battlestar Galactica reboot from the mid 2000s, and I've watched that several times over, and I love it to death. So I can look past that. It doesn't bother me.
I remember watching Battlestar Galactica and then getting to those last couple episodes and being like, "This is what we're doing. This is really what we're doing. All right, okay, I've come this far. All right."
The only part that really fell apart for me was the whole Colonel Ty Caprica 6 romance. I was like really disturbed. Why? Like, why did the writers think this was a good idea?
Yeah, I actually watched Battlestar Galactica in like a 2-week Netflix free trial period when I had the flu. This was like years and years and years and years and years ago. Like, I was super sick, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna watch all of Battlestar Galactica. I just decided that was what I was going to like pseudo consciousness fever dream watch for a week of.
I could do another one of these episodes all about Battlestar Galactica, so I don't want to get into this too much.
Sorry, we can get back on Star Trek. I was gonna make I was leading into something.
The origin of humanity. But all right, back on track. So Deep Space Nine, not really my type of show. Mm-hmm. However, I'm not saying it didn't have its good ideas. I like the idea of Dr. Bashir being genetically engineered. I thought that was an interesting take on a character. I like the whole Trill idea, although recasting Jadzia Dax into, I can't even remember what the character's name.
Oh yeah, that was a weird like
unfortunate.
behind the scenes thing where I think that the actor that was playing Dax,
Well, she left to
it
go
was
be
something
in
with
like
a contract.
she left to go be in a show with the guy from Cheers,
Mhm.
like which was supposed to be like a bigger break for her. But has she acted since? No.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even think she wanted to leave the show. I think she said she was going to go do something else, and then they just wrote her out, and replaced her in the last season.
To be fair, I'm not surprised that they did that, because one thing that Kate Mulgrew talked about after Voyager ended was how insane those hours were, that they they would film like 16 hours straight. Like it would be like 16-hour work days they would have to work. So I'm not surprised that they would have to write her out, because trying to fit things around her schedule would have been too impossible.
Yeah.
And here's where we get to Voyager, because here comes Chris.
Yep,
All right,
barely
Chris,
made it.
All right, so we have been chatting. We haven't gotten to Voyager yet, but we just chatted about Next Generation, and we just talked about Deep Space Nine. Do you have, on those two shows, what are your opinions?
Deep Space Nine, yes.
Cannot
Chris,
hear
your
you.
audio is very, very, very low.
Oh, is it?
There you go. That's better.
Okay, I had to turn it up some.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I said, long story short, Deep Space Nine, yes. Voyager, no.
Well, we haven't talked about Voyager yet, but what are your opinions on Next Generation and Deep Space Nine?
Oh, God. That's like trying to choose between two children. I absolutely love both of them. Deep Space Nine, I grew up with that. I mean, Deep Space Nine. TNG, I grew up with that one. DS9 was more like my late teenage years, but I love both of them. I love the format.
All right, my gripe with Deep Space Nine, as I just talked about with Terry, was that it was not a show about exploration. Instead of
It definitely was.
Instead of Next Generation and Voyager, where it was, hey, let's go out there and see what's out there. Deep Space Nine was things happening to them instead.
Yeah.
And I didn't dig that at all. That did not feel like Star Trek to me. So that's why it was, and there were a lot of things about Deep Space Nine I did like. I mean, who didn't love the whole Dominion War storyline, especially when the Romulans came to the surprise aid of the Federation?
Yeah,
that was epic.
Based on a lie, but we'll get onto that.
Yeah,
later.
See, I like that. I like that they went there with Deep Space Nine, like that, and then what's the episode? The episode where they just sort of like go to the front lines, and it's just like that show. They hit home with stuff. I think more so than the other ones, and also I'd said before that I think Deep Space Nine is better in retrospect. I think because now with streaming, you can sit down and watch a show like beginning to end in the way that wasn't available back then. So I remember one of the problems I had with DS9, when it was on originally was, I couldn't always sit down and consistently watch it. But like with Voyager or Next Generation, because between UPN and Spike back in the day, like a Star Trek of some kind was always on. And with original series, Next Generation, Voyager, you could kind of just watch any episode and know what was going on. There were very few episodes where you really needed to know what was happening, because everything was very self-contained with Deep Space Nine, because it was that very continuous storyline to it. I felt like when I would watch it, I wouldn't know what was going on because I didn't have that context. But then, kind of going back now that it was on Netflix and now it's on Paramount, you can watch it beginning to end and be like, oh, wow. They were telling a really cool story.
All right, so we're going to get into the part that we're going to disagree on explicitly. I say Voyager was a very good show. Chris,
it wasn't bad. It just was not my top 3 by no means.
For me, it's my number 2. First of all, the idea behind it, them trapped so far away, loved it. Stargate would steal that idea later on. I can't remember the name of the show.
Was Stargate after Voyager?
Yeah.
No. Actually,
There was a
maybe
no,
before
Stargate
Steve, it was before.
spin-off show where they got trapped in a faraway and had to make their way back to Earth.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
let's be
that's
honest, Voyager
Atlantis.
stole it
Yes,
from,
and the
No,
fact.
no. It wasn't Atlantis. It was the second spin-off from Stargate.
Oh, you're talking about Universe?
It might have been that one. I just remember Lou Diamond Phillips was in it.
Yes, that was Universe.
Yeah.
And he was the one on Earth, but yeah, we'll get into Stargate in another episode.
we already decided we need to have a whole Battlestar Galactica episode. So
Yes. Oh my God, I'm obsessed with that.
we went on like a 10-minute tangent about Battlestar Galactica.
Everyone who is on that show that I've met, really cool people too. That's just a side note. I've met Trisha Helfer, and I've met Timo Penniket, and a few others. You know, of course, Caprica 6 and Hilo. I was very upset because the first year I didn't go to a Dragon Con was the year that James Callis was going, and I was so upset because Walter was my favorite character on that show. But anyways, back to Star Trek. All right, so for me, it wasn't just the concept of Voyager that I thought was so great. They could turn bad ideas into great episodes. The episode a lot of people don't like, I thought was really good. And it's not the lizard one, Terry, calm down. It's the dinosaur one.
Okay, now I did like that one.
I love that episode. It was such a bad idea. However, the episode turned out great to me.
Especially the ending when they just denied their origins. Like Voyager's like, this is where you came from. They're like, no, leave.
I love that scene in the holodeck where Janeway was like looking at a hadrosaur and was like, okay, come up with a situation where it kept evolving for millions of more years. How would it look like? And it came out like that. It was brilliant to me. And the idea of dinosaurs somehow surviving their extinction is just a romantic idea to me. That is like, and technically they did, I mean, birds, but
yeah.
It reminded me of the Mario movie.
No.
Like, that's all I could think about watching that episode is like, I've seen this movie. There were plumbers in it.
It was such a bad concept, but they turned it into the morality of when faced with evidence, do you change your views or do you accept the new evidence? No matter how far-fetched, their DNA said that they were related to these humans in some way, but they couldn't accept it.
Mm.
Yep.
So, and don't get me wrong, there were a few things on Voyager I really did not like. Their over-dependence on the Borg really started to get on my nerves. Borg all the time. It was great when it first happened. Okay, I get the idea. Borg are cool. Okay, can we move on from something other than the Borg? Okay, I know Borg space is long, but you're on the other side of Borg space now. Please, let's just forget about the Borg. The other thing that would bother me is the Hirogen were just basically predators. Like,
yeah, basically.
Come on, that's such a ripoff.
Yeah, I guess, and this is also, so this might be a later thing. I have some issues with it, but I like Picard, like the show Picard. I know that's real controversial.
That's where we are going to differ big time. Me and Chris.
Yeah, I know. I'm here to bring the controversy.
I'm going to give you full screen here and let you state your case for Picard.
God damn it.
Oh, I'm just getting that ready.
Just you and Klingon.
Okay, so first of all, as mentioned previously, I will watch Patrick Stewart like stand against a brick wall. I love Patrick Stewart. But I like what they're doing. Okay. I like Picard because I feel like with the other new Star Treks that they've come out with, like Discovery and Enterprise and the new one, Strange New Worlds, like they keep going back in time to like either pre-original Star Trek or around original Star Trek. I like that Picard is a continuation of like, this is what is happening now with the
Yeah.
this is
I'm
what's
just
happening
going-
with the
I'm just
Federation.
going
This is
to
what-
chime in on that too. I hate regression. I hate prequels. You'd have to have a great reason for going backwards. I want forward progression. I want to see what happens after Voyager. You know, I
Right.
want to see
Yeah.
what happens after. I don't want to see Discovery. I had no interest when they announced it. I was so disappointed. I was like, great, a new Star Trek show, finally. And it's in the same universe. And
Well,
it's-
season
What?
3 took it to the 32nd century, but now it's way too different. It's
Yeah,
way
I've
too
watched.
different.
I actually watched the first 2 episodes of it, just kind of in anticipation of coming on this show.
Well,
I
I'm up to
thought
date on the whole
Enterprise
series.
Taught them a lesson.
Yeah.
Don't
Oh,
do
sorry.
this.
I was just saying that. So I watched the first 2 episodes, and I liked how Discovery started. But then they fridged the original captain, which I guess she comes back, or what? I don't know, spoilers, I guess. But like, what's your name? Michelle Yan, is that her name in real life?
Oh no, she actually her character died, and then her mirror universe.
Right.
That's the only interesting thing about Discovery that I've read about the show is they dive more into the mirror universe, which I find
big
a
time.
little
Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah,
But
and I
now
guess
they cut off the mirror universe because when they went to the future, I guess they're trying to say that the Kelvin timeline from the Abrams Star Trek exists, and that the minute the Kelvin timeline existed, it pushed the mirror universe away. They have not been able to go to the mirror universe in 600 years now.
That's a
yes.
strange concept to me, but it
Very.
might take a
Mhm.
physicist to explain that stuff to me.
I mean,
Yeah.
they travel with fungal spores now too, I guess. So
Yeah, the spore drive is the most stupid plot hole device I think I have ever seen in my entire life. But this past season, they said, oh, well, there's a limit. It can't go to the galactic barrier, and you can't use it out in the abyss between
The reason that
universes.
the whole idea that the mirror universe is pushed away bothers me is because of the episode of Next Generation where Worf was just going from one universe to the next.
Yes.
So it was so easy. Like it's not a measure of distance. Like
Yeah,
a universe, an alternate universe shouldn't be like a measure of distance. It shouldn't.
Well,
be
I feel like Star Trek has always kind of been very inconsistent with things like time and parallel universes, where like, if the plot needs us to go back in time, we can just go back in time because this is just what's happening now on certain episodes.
Yeah, well, Roddenberry said it best about his own canon. He said, you can kind of stretch it when you need to. And they still do it 50 years later.
All right, back to Picard for you, Terry.
Okay. Oh man, I thought I was off the hook. Okay, so I liked it. I like that it is a progression of kind of what DS9 sort of pushed. Because if you look at Star Trek kind of universe from, and I haven't watched Enterprise, but like from my understanding of sort of the timeline of the Federation, Deep Space Nine kind of took it out of this like, peace exploration utopian world and brought it into kind of the reality of like, okay, but if you're going to be a federation of planets, if you're going to declare yourself like having the right to just control large pieces of space, there's going to be some consequences to that. There's a lot of Picard that's very it's very much kind of like for the fans a lot. It brings back a lot of the old Next Generation characters, which I enjoy. I enjoy seeing them. I enjoy seeing the progression of, kind of what these characters did after Next Generation. I wasn't a big fan of how season 2 ended because I think, and this is why I kind of was talking about with the Borg, is like I think villains like the Borg are cool when they are scary. And I think what Voyager did by overusing them made them less scary. And I love robots. I love cyborgs. Like we had the joke about giant fighting robots back in high school. Like I'll watch anything with like robots and cyborgs in them. But I think, when you sort of defang the Borg and make them like, oh, they're just sort of people that are also cyborgs and they're here and it's fine. Let's just make alliances with them. Then there are villains that I don't think need to be humanized, and they don't need redemption arcs. I think sometimes villains just need to be villains.
Chris, do you want to go first on your perspective of Picard, or should I?
I mean, I can.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, you know, I did love the first season. I absolutely love the first season. I mean, it had its little bits and things, and I agree with Terry. They kind of made the Borg. They kind of humanized the Borg too much. I mean, the whole thing with Hugh, because you know, last time we saw Hugh, he still had the eye scope and everything. You know, he wasn't part of the collective, but he was still kind of Borg. They made him almost completely human now. And I mean, the whole thing with 7 of 9, Jerry Ryan, you know, she's practically human again, going back and forth between using her original name and then using 7 of 9. I thought that was kind of weird. But I mean, besides those points, you know, I loved, you know, Picard coming to terms with his guilt he had, because he thought that, you know, he was responsible for Data dying without, you know, really thinking about it. Hey, Data laid his life on the line to save you. You're not really responsible. I mean, it was a bad situation what happened on Nemesis. And I just, you know, I really liked that season. I liked how they well, no, Sochi kind of went a little slow at first with the progression, but she got better as it went along. Now, season 2, after the whole thing with the Stargazer, and then they were in the alternate universe, I was like, well, what are you guys doing? I mean, they made Q crazy. They made Q sound like that he was like, just, you know what, it's over. I'm just going to murder everything I see. Only to have that heartfelt, touching moment at the end of the series. I'm like, well, what are you doing? Like, you had him practically getting ready to punch you in the face, and all of a sudden he's like, you matter to me. I'm like, well, what? Huh? And then, and then
This is just
Girardi.
Q's just been trying to ask Picard out on a date for the last 30 years.
That too. And then Dr. Girardi getting assimilated and then somehow turning the Borg into a lovable people that want to be Federation members. No, that does not happen. Retcon.
Yeah, no.
All right. I'll say 2 things I liked about Picard when it first came out. One, I love seeing old characters coming back. My dream idea for a Star Trek show would be to take characters from Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager and have a new ship with these different characters. Maybe having like the little girl from Pen Pals grown up and joined the Federation. You know, you can utilize characters, and I'm sure there are some of the actors who wouldn't mind coming back to a Star Trek show.
Yeah, well, a lot of them have said that they want to. It's just they didn't really get invited until I think they finally said season 3. The original cast is coming back.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. That it's going to be more focused on other characters.
And then the other thing I liked about Picard was they were focusing on Data's daughter. That was a really important episode to me. And I have a book here that's spent like the entire book is about Data trying to resurrect Lal. So that was another great aspect, even if it wasn't really about Lal. It was about other daughters that Data created that were sort of create. No, it was Bruce Maddox.
Yeah, it was Dr. Maddox.
Yeah.
And now there are several problems I had with Picard. So don't get too upset with me because you guys, I mean, Terry, you liked it. And Chris, you sound like you're kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
I disliked Picard so much. First, cardinal sin they did was treat characters like garbage who came back to the show, namely Ikeb from Voyager. That pissed me off so much that this character that grew over the course of like a season and a half on Voyager was brought back for a brutal, brutal death on Picard. Commander Maddox. Recast. If you can't get that original actor, don't use that character. That really took me out of it. He didn't even look anything like Commander Maddox from Measure of a Man. Like, it wasn't even close. And then the other issue I had was with Picard himself, because to me, it did not feel like Patrick Stewart was playing Captain Picard anymore. It felt like he was playing Patrick Stewart in the Patrick Stewart Show.
A little bit.
This was not Picard to me. This was Patrick Stewart. And I love Patrick Stewart, but this was Patrick Stewart pretending to be Picard, which is acting. All right, I'm not making any sense. But, I mean, the whole scene of him and in the bar where he's pretending to be somebody else undercover.
Oh,
that was Patrick Stewart. That was not Captain Picard.
That I'm pretty sure that was a joke going back to original Next Generation, where Gene Roddenberry wanted him to be a swashbuckling Frenchman, but his French accent was so bad. After like 5 minutes, Gene Roddenberry was like, "Okay, just do it in your normal voice, please stop." So I feel like that was definitely like a joke on his own, being bad at being French, even though Picard is supposed to be French.
So I get that ICAB was used as just a plot point to get 7 of 9 involved in the story. Yeah. As much as I hated that they did that to ICAB, it was just a means to an end to get 7 of 9 involved. Why did they like almost destroy the character of Hugh? Like, it was so frustrating to watch too. Because to have characters from the Next Generation back, dream come true. Depicted this way and in this storyline involving once again the friggin' Borg. No. And I get why some fans were upset that, oh, this doesn't feel like Star Trek. They're not out exploring, you know. I get that they wanted to do something different. I get that they were focusing on what happened with the Romulans. And I didn't have a problem with any of that, even though I mentioned, you know, Deep Space Nine wasn't my thing because it wasn't about exploration. I would have easily forgiven that because I love so many of the characters from Next Generation. And then we see they bring back Riker and Troy to make pizzas and be really upset about a daughter. It's like, man, the books do so much better at what happened to these characters after the shows and the movies ended. Why am I seeing such a worse interpretation?
Yeah, it does kind of feel like there's with that, and I feel like it's sort of just Patrick Stewart called people. It was like, hey, you want to be on a show? You guys busy? And then they're just kind of existing. And
it's a reunion for them. I'm sure they're like, yeah, cool.
Which, though I gotta say, like, opening up, like, it opens with Blue Skies, like the song that, you know, Data's song from Nemesis, and like this, because I was watching it with my roommates who had already seen it. So like the second that show opens with like that song just kind of subtly playing in the background, and I'm like, wait, are they? And then Data, then like, you know, it's him playing like chess or whatever it is with Data. I'm just like, all right, I'm in it. I'm here. I am personally attacked by this show. Let's go.
Right. So now that we're talking about what happened with these Next Generation characters, I'm going to just bring up a book series, and I'm going to make myself main screen because I'm egotistic. But just so that the book's a little bit easier to see. But Star Trek Cold Equations. My green screen's kind of messing with it a bit. But that right there with Geordi is not Data. It's Noonien Soong, who it's explained in that after the character died, he actually had a failsafe. He downloaded his mind into an android body.
Yeah,
makes sense. Noonien Soong would do something like that. So the book is Noonien Soong trying to figure out how to revive his children, who, you know, Lore's disassembled. Data's consciousness is inside B4, and B4.
Well, they wrote that out now too.
Huh?
They wrote that out now too.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was kind of he's like in a box or something.
Yeah, that B4 got disassembled because Data's consciousness overloaded his neural network and shut him down.
Well, didn't they disassemble because there was all? And actually, I liked the whole like robots or the anti-droid or anti-android like thing they did with the first season.
Mm-hmm.
I thought.
Oh
that was
yeah, no
interesting.
sense. No sense. That's what they kept saying.
Yeah. So I thought that plot because that was kind of like mystery. I like that mystery aspect of the first season of it.
As far as Q's rationale goes, explained beautifully in another book, where the entire book is interspersed with chapters explaining each of his appearances in Next Generation. And this book is blue, so I'm guessing it's not going to show up very well against my green screen. But the book is called Q&A. A spin on how all of his episodes were about, Q related. But anyways, it explains that each of his appearances in Next Generation was calculated. He had a reason for being there, and it had to do with Picard, and it had to do with Tapestry. How when he was stabbed through the heart, Picard, when he was in the academy, and he looked down and he laughed. He laughed at the absurdity of the situation he was in. As it turns out, there's an alien race above the Q continuum that has decided to just end the universe and restart. The Q continuum is going to survive this, but they don't want to see all these civilizations go. So, Q used Picard in particular as a means to convince this higher race that the absurdity of it all is not worth losing. Because when Picard was faced with these creatures and how they're just going to end things and restart, he did the same thing. He just laughed at the absurdity of it all. And they were like, that's interesting, and decided to keep it going. The only episode they didn't explain was the whole Robin Hood episode. And
I am not a married man.
Picard actually brought it up, and Q was just like, well, I just wanted to see you in tights.
I was bored.
But it was a great explanation for Q and why he did the things he did. I'm always going to nitpick something, and I nitpick one thing in this book that I think was greatly written, and that's the episode where Q became human. According to the book, it was just a trick, that he never lost his powers. However, in the show, that doesn't make sense, because he had that whole conversation with the other Q, played by Corbin Burnson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why would that scene exist if he was just faking the whole time? So yeah, those are my issues with Picard. And it would take a lot for me to get to watch season 3. Even the existence of Q coming back, and I'm a huge fan of John Delancey, especially as a person. So the fact that season 1 blew it so hard for me that I haven't watched season 2 shows you how much of a negative opinion I have of the show Picard right now. However, all it takes is a bunch of fans to say, no, season 3 is great. And then I'll go through season 2. And, man, I just did not like some of the new characters they introduced in Picard either. I didn't even talk about them. The smuggler captain or whatever that was supposed to be the dashing rogue character. It's like,
I have my feelings about how he ended this past season too.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was the protege of Maddox who was turns out
Dr.
in love with
Girardi.
Maddox, like, and I love that actress.
Yeah. I was kind of into the like her and the Borg Queen thing they had going on.
Well, I liked how they did it, how the assimilation happened.
Yeah. Like that was cool. I liked their interact because I didn't like Girardi in the first season, but the second season, like I liked her interaction with the Borg Queen. Like I was just okay, I'm here for it. But yeah, I didn't really like how they resolved that.
No.
For me, right now, Star Trek is the Orville.
Yeah, I can't argue with you there. I mean, Orville goes back to roots that haven't been touched in a long time.
Orville goes back to the morality of situations. Season 1 was very much a mix of Family Guy humor with Star Trek universe. Season 2 dived more into Star Trek style.
Yeah.
Less of the Family Guy style humor. Season 3 started off with a robot committing suicide and the implications of he has no emotions. Why did he do this? And the implications they used were beautiful because it wasn't just about the morality of a sentient being committing suicide. It was the rationale separate from the emotions as to why people might commit suicide. And this robot committed suicide because he felt like the ship would just work better if he wasn't around. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of people who commit suicide feel like. The world would just be better if I wasn't here. So this show that started off as kind of like goofy comedy Star Trek parody is now fully Star Trek to me. Like serious topics, huge moral quandaries, and just some light humor dashed in every once in a while. You know, Terry, if you haven't watched The Orville, trust me, it is worth it.
Yeah, I think I watched a couple episodes when it first came out, and I was kind of, not particularly care for the Family Guy humor. But yeah, I've heard a lot of people say it got progressively better. So I'll probably have to go back and watch it. What is it on? Like,
Hulu.
What is it streaming?
Hulu.
It's on Hulu. Okay.
But yeah, just get through season 1. Season 1's not bad. It's not going to be for everybody. Season 2 is when they really started. Seth MacFarlane really decided to veer towards Star Trek, and he is a huge fan of Star Trek. Obviously, they had a whole Family Guy episode on Next Generation and all the voice actors coming back for it. But especially when it comes to the Krill, I think is so Star Trek, a race that is extremely religious, and it's at odds with the Federation was very non-religious starting out, and then Deep Space Nine happened, and I got tired of hearing about the PA race. But where it's at now, the second episode of season 3 just came out yesterday, and I watched it this morning.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's the season 3 is now called New Horizons, I think. Horizons, and it's going to be focused even more on exploration. Like the first episode was just kind of like putting a button on what happened at the end of season 2, and now they've dived right into the exploration, and it's scary. Like, there's some scary stuff out there probably, so I'm glad that they didn't start it off with, oh, here's a great new civilization, let's make first contact. It was, holy crap, nature can be scary.
Good. I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where I'm at with Star Trek right now. The Orville. That is Star Trek to me right now.
For me, it's Orville and Strange New Worlds. And I know you don't like prequels, but there's just something about them going back just far enough 10 years prior to Captain Pike. I mean, we know what happens to Captain Pike. We know what his fate is.
What is Lower Decks? What is that supposed to be?
An abomination.
Wait, what is what?
Lower Decks.
Oh yeah, I tried to watch. I actually put that on today and was like trying to watch it, and then I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good.
Is it supposed to be a comedy or?
Yeah. The long story short with Lower Decks, the exact same team, nobody different, the exact same team that does Rick and Morty was handed a contract for 3 seasons to do a cartoon, and they were like, "Oh, okay, we're gonna do all the people on Lower Decks," and it's awful. It's just a rehash of Rick and Morty jokes every 5 minutes. It's just everywhere. It's terrible. And then like they'll pull out some old mistakes that Star Trek has done. Like I don't know how many people know about back in the day. They didn't know how to market Star Trek well, and like Mattel came out with the helmet that had Spock across it with the spinning light on the top, which nobody ever wore in Starfleet. Well, one of the security guards came out with that helmet on in one episode just to poke fun at Mattel for making that abomination. But like for the most part, it's crazy comedy. I like the cast, the voice actors that they have on it, because a lot of them are people we know, like Jack Quaid, Tawny Newsome. Like it's great actors and actresses. But it's just Rick and Morty like just potty humor. Like it's just straight Rick and Morty all the time. It's so weird.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
It kind of reminded me, from the little bit that I watched of it, it reminded me of, did either of you read the book Red Shirts?
No, sounds
Okay.
funny.
It's hilarious. So it is basically a Star Trek. Yeah, it's so it's very much like tongue in cheek, but it is from the point of view of the Red Shirts. But it's not Star Trek. It's like a show. So it's not actually Star Trek, but it's basically Star Trek, and it's stuff like, you know, these like, you know, ensigns and enlisted crewmen kind of realizing that, like, yeah, you want to avoid the bridge crew, because if the bridge crew invite, like, you know, if you're assigned to go on an away mission with the bridge crew, you're absolutely going to die. Like, you know, so it's basically these, like, you know, red shirts who are just have learned to avoid the bridge crew and the commanders, because they've just figured out that there are certain people on the ship that, like, if you go on an away mission with them, like, you're going to die or become horribly injured. And there's like this one character that's literally just in, like, he just lives in the Jeffrey tubes, because he's just like, because I think the whole thing is like his wife ends up dying, and then he's just like, F this, and just is like, has his, I think he's some kind of like engineer person, so he's just figured out how to do all his work remote, and he literally just like lives in a Jeffrey's tube. Nice. He refuses to come out because he's gonna die. It's hilarious.
All right, yeah. Let's put an end opinion to Star Trek shows. For me, number one, Star Trek: The Next Generation has its flaws, absolutely, but the highs outweigh the lows by an insane margin. Then it's Voyager, then Deep Space Nine, and then the rest. And there's a big gap between Voyager and Deep Space Nine to me. And I know so many people love Deep Space Nine, but it's just not my thing, and I think it has a lot of great ideas. Odo is probably the best character on the show to me. But I mean, I don't know how differently the show would have turned out for me if Kira Nerys didn't exist, because that character was not supposed to be there. It was supposed to be Ro Laren. But it's just, it missed the mark to me. I love O'Brien, don't get me wrong, but expanding that character, probably not the best idea.
I disagree, but okay.
Garrick is the best character, and I will die by that.
He was a good character, I agree.
I mean, he's one of my favorites.
And I didn't mind when they focused on the Ferengi. I liked how their culture was expanded upon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked how
where they started. Big difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like what they did with the Ferengi, considering how they started in the Next Generation and the amount of cringe that they were. Like, I'm glad that they made them like really cool characters by DS9.
I loved in Voyager when they had the two Ferengi who disappeared in Next Generation, ended up in the Delta Quadrant. They eventually ran into them.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Great callback. Having a whole episode based on that, wonderful. But how would you rank the Star Trek shows, Terry, to you?
So I feel like it's hard because a lot of them were trying to do different things. I think from like, I guess my own personal enjoyment of them, Next Generation, Next Generation, I think is always going to be my favorite. Like I said, because I loved Voyager when it was on, but I think Deep Space Nine was the better show. So
That's just wrong.
So I think I would have to go Deep Space Nine, then Voyager, then original series. But I think original series was, we didn't really talk about original series at all. I think original series was good for what it was meant to be. And it's kind of like, I kind of put original series in the same place. And this is a whole other probably controversial opinion for another show. But like, I put him in the same category as things like Tolkien and Lovecraft, in that, you know, I don't super enjoy like their writing style, but I enjoy what they have done for the genre. And that's kind of how I feel about original series. Like, I can enjoy it in retrospect. I also really like the movies. Like, we didn't talk about movies either, but yeah, I even liked the first Star Trek movie. Like, that movie is underrated. I liked it, and I'll fight about it.
But where does Picard rank in that?
And that's the thing, like, it's so different from those original four. Like, I wouldn't, because I struggle to even compare the original four, because I feel like they are just very different shows in a lot of ways. And, you know, I think Picard I put Picard closest to Deep Space Nine in the way it's written. But I don't know. Like, I feel like I can't really put it in the same category because it's just so different. And I don't really like the newer. I feel like the new Star Treks are a very different animal than the old Star Treks. That is my
Chris, what about you?
Non-committal opinion.
Well, with my ranking, I've seen almost all the shows, so my ranking's kind of all over the place. But definitely I would start with TNG would be my top, because it was my first. And absolutely loved it. Actually, TNG helped me realize that the original series existed. And then I went back and watched the original series and the movies. I absolutely love the movies. I'm with Terry. The motion picture is completely underrated. The 4K remaster just came out on Paramount Plus. Watch it.
Oh, nice.
Watch it.
Do that as soon as we're done here.
Yeah, watch it. But yeah, TNG for me. DS9, because I loved how DS9 introduced the politics of the Federation and showing you that, you know, it wasn't so perfect. It had chinks in its armor. And then after DS9, I would say the original series. And then I would go with Voyager. And then after Voyager, now I'm just going to have to say it. After Voyager, Enterprise.
I think I told you I couldn't get past the theme song because I didn't like that they changed the theme song format, and I just refused to watch it.
But after, because I will agree with all the fandom that's out there, season 1 was a complete dumpster fire. You know, with him walking up to everybody going, "Hey, I know you're firing, but let's make peace." And then by season 3, he was like, just beam a photon torpedo on their bridge. But like after Enterprise, then I'm going to have to say the new show, Strange New Worlds. I am absolutely in love with that, with how this show is turning out so far. And then it's all the rest of them after that at the bottom.
All right, G, I know you haven't watched any Star Trek shows. Why haven't you watched any of them?
I don't know. I just didn't really get into it like that, you know? One time I really got into it, watched it, is when we were in Europe, because we had like one channel in English, so, you know, you can watch what you can get. And when I went stateside, it just, you know, it was endless channels. But I never got into it. This wasn't my thing. My mom was into the Star Trek. That's her. My mom.
Is it the type of thing where you just kind of rebel against what your parents watched?
No, I just wasn't into it. It's the simplest fact. I just wasn't into it.
That's fair. I mean, everybody's into different things. All I can say is on the argument of Star Trek is, it dives a lot into morality, which is a theme I love across many different mediums. So I love video games that dive into morality, especially when you get to choose morality like Mass Effect or Fable. So that's Star Trek isn't just about exploration to me, which is why I don't hate Deep Space Nine. It dives into the morality as well, which is probably the most important aspect of Star Trek shows to me, is diving into morality and seeing how they might be applied to today's world. If you've seen, has everyone here seen the new Doctor Strange movie?
Yeah.
I haven't.
Not yet.
All right. Well, I won't say, but one character, obviously it's called Multiverse of Madness. So they go into the multiverse. One character mentions that in most universes, food is just free. And I like the moral conundrum with that. It's like, our universe is imperfect because why would food cost money? Why wouldn't it be available just to everyone? Water is free. Food should probably be free.
See as a means of production.
Hey, I'm sorry. How long y'all gonna be online doing this?
We are actually ending very soon here.
Okay, yeah. I'm gonna try. I'll have more free time within the week of the 19th. From there, I'll have more free time.
Okay.
So just let me know when the next one is. I'll definitely be more participating in it.
As far as future shows go, everyone and anyone can suggest what they want to talk about. Me, Chris, and Terry, obviously, we want to do a Battlestar Galactica episode.
Yeah. We'll do
Okay.
Star Wars.
Yeah, I didn't see Battlestar. Only thing I get close to Battlestar was probably Buck Rogers.
G, obviously, you would have a lot of knowledge with video games. So more video game centric episodes, you would obviously be a lot more inclined to.
Oh, definitely. And some anime too, depending the generation. Because a lot of the new stuff, I guess the newer stuff, like you say, 2010 and up, I'm not really, and it's a hit and miss with me on that. Unless someone I see it on Netflix, I'll binge watch it, whatever, then it's just one of them things. I prefer like the old school, a lot of it.
Did anime change after it became a big business? Did it kind of lose a lot of its artistic?
I think it lost a lot of its, it's just like, it's like a lot of time I know a lot of new anime, they're kind of like half-assing it. Sorry, not really doing it right. And just, you can tell like difference in like the story and the graphics, the drawings and everything. It's just not really a lot like they did back in. I know technology changes. I understand that. It's just, I think a lot of it, they're relying too much on computers compared to old school. I think the old school is just, it just felt more, you say, it had better emphasis, more, it just felt better. Like, it's just like, they took the time. It's just, I think the hand-drawn style back in like the 90s, the 80s was better. So, in some point, yeah, better. In some, it just depends. But I just liked it, old school anime. So it's like, I think a lot of times these days, just the convenience of using computers. It's just like, you're not really putting like a lot of stuff, like with another video game like Kojima, like Metal Gear Solid. He did the first 3. Then after that, it's just they pretty much rushed him, and you see how the Phantom Pain was kind of crappy compared to his other ones.
Yeah.
Like first one, absolutely perfect, and 2, he had the same emphasis, and 3, kind of, I guess he was kind of rushing out a little, but after that, the Phantom Pain, you could tell I think it was just hella rush. It's like they just did the basics and just kept reusing the same stuff over and over again. They really try just to get it out quicker.
That's the business.
Yeah, and that's how you lose a lot of your fan base.
Yeah. All right. So we are going to end this show. And I want to thank everyone for being part of our first show. It wasn't the smoothest ride, and it went a lot longer than I was expecting it to go.
I'm definitely going to miss one a lot longer with y'all. Definitely started to get it out. I definitely wanted to, catch up. Plus, I haven't talked to y'all in like 50 years, especially Terry and Chris still all sounding like, yeah, it's been a long time. But definitely, well, I gotta let you know when I move to Germany. Got limited time, so hopefully I should be able. Well, 7 hours. Yeah, I'm gonna do like in the morning time with y'all.
Mhm.
I go back to Germany.
All right, you guys. I'm going to end this broadcast, and thank you to everyone who watched and watches this on replay. We're a brand new YouTube channel, so we don't have the biggest audience yet, obviously.
All right, I'll make sure I'll change it. I'll leave my username. I'll change it up.
Yeah, I just saw it.
Yeah, it's on Star Trek. Okay, there you go.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.